The chair now recognizes Mr. Min for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to build on some of the comments reflected in the article that was just introduced into the record. Currently, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, solar energy costs $55 per megawatt hour, and over the next 20 years, that is expected to drop below $25 per megawatt hour. Wind right now is at $40 per megawatt hour, and that's expected to drop to $35 per megawatt hour. And since energy is kind of the backdrop of this particular hearing, I just want to note that in all of the above approach to energy should have a robust place for renewables, particularly given that most economic experts out there believe that this is the industry of the future, that coal, fossil fuels, for a number of reasons, including the impacts they create on our climate, are seen as a 20th century technology. And at this time, I will just note that my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, along with President Trump and his administration, are engaged in concerted attack on clean energy, renewable energy right now. And this hearing is in the backdrop of that because many of us fear that what is being discussed as NEPA reform is actually an attempt to really eliminate NEPA or to render it essentially impotent. And certainly coming from California, I know the need for permitting reform. I took part in a lot of efforts to try to reform the California Environmental Quality Act, which is even more onerous than NEPA, and which has really hampered California attempts to build out clean energy infrastructure, to build housing, to build many of the things that we need in an advanced economic society. But it's hard to ignore the fact that this majority, time and time again, has tried to give away our public lands, including in national parks, to the fossil fuel industry, to mining interests, and that this, when in the big beautiful bill or big ugly bill or big bad betrayal, whatever you want to call it, House Republicans tried and failed twice to include hundreds of thousands of acres of lease sales to big oil and other fossil fuel concerns. Right now, we are set to debate, and I think this is not going to happen this week, but perhaps when we get back, we were set to debate 3 Congressional Review Act resolutions that would overturn resource management plans in Alaska, Montana, and North Dakota, ignoring local community consensus just to pave the way for more fossil fuel development, which I'm told will largely go to foreign interests. We'll later consider a bill, probably when we get back, to weaken the Clean Water Act and make it easier for private companies to pollute our waterways and jeopardize our public health. And so again, it's hard to ignore this NEPA quote-unquote reform in the backdrop of all this happening. It's also hard to ignore it in the face of these massive cuts to the agencies that are responsible for trying to approve NEPA reforms. And so my first question, Mr. Mergen, is for you. What is the aggregate impact, in your view, of these staffing cuts that we've seen? Do they make our permitting reviews more efficient, or do they delay them?
They substantially delay. And I want to make clear that I think that there are steps, as I've indicated, that can be taken to enhance permitting. But I really do believe that begins with a trained staff with the expertise and relying on institutional knowledge. You mentioned the RMPs. The resource management plans, that's an arduous process. There are a lot of experts brought to bear, petroleum engineers, geologists, wildlife biologists, archaeologists out in the field, right? Making good decisions, productive harmony, right, that NEPA is intended to produce, right? We can move forward in a productive way. That making those decisions, and it is extremely hard to do without the staffing.
And when you cut 7,500 employees across the Interior and 15,000 at the Department of Agriculture, obviously that's going to have a huge impact on permitting.
Strongly agree.
And when you put all of those decisions on wind and solar permits, for example, as in the hands of one person, Secretary Burgum, what's the impact of permitting going to be there?
Further delay, but also I think a loss of credibility in terms of permitting reform efforts. Yep. There is bipartisan support, but if it looks like you're choosing sides, you're going to lose the folks in the Democratic Party who are strong advocates for permitting reform.
And I will just close with this. I believe in environmental protections. I believe those environmental protections, including NEPA, need reform, but they do not need to be eliminated. In fact, it would be counterproductive to society as a whole to eliminate environmental regulations, to eliminate permitting approvals and things of that nature. And that, I think, is what many of us are concerned, that this is actually a Trojan horse. It is not meant to reform NEPA. It's meant to effectively eliminate NEPA. And with that, I yield back.